now to the fires in Maui. Is it one big land grab? That's the question today. Is it one big land grab? Is it part of a World Economic Forum plan to turn Maui into a 15-minute island or a series of islands using the 15-minute plan where you don't have to drive cars, use fossil fuels, just walk or bike to everything that you need, be fully run on electricity and solar power, fully on renewable energy? We're going to stick to the facts, though, tonight, using publicly available data from the United States government and multiple publicly available sources so you can draw your own conclusions about what's going on in Maui. So on Sunday, President Biden spent hours relaxing on Rehoboth Beach. And when he left the beach, a Bloomberg reporter asked him for his thoughts on the amount of death and destruction in Hawaii. A Bloomberg reporter asked him this, and President Biden responded, "No comment." No comment. Like, literally, okay. Do you remember when George W. Bush was lambasted, and rightly so, for his disastrous Katrina response? And that photo was released showing him flying over New Orleans, famously. Like, he was at a fundraiser in California and flew over New Orleans, and they took a picture of him, like, looking out the window on his way back to Washington. Yeah, that didn't go so well for President Bush. It doesn't go so well when you're just relaxing on the beach in Rehoboth Beach, and when asked to comment on the greatest U.S. wildfire disaster in American history, in modern American history, you say no comment. Yeah,
or when Trump went to Puerto Rico and,
threw paper towels
at people, that also was not a great look. And so, we have to give equal criticism here, right? Like, you can make the point. He's on vacation, leave the guy alone, right? We're not going to make that point.
No, presidents of the United States don't get to go on vacation. And even, by the way, when they're on vacation, they have a mobile White House that's with them. Like, there's no vacation for the president of the United States. You sort of cash that chip in when you decided to run for president. Go ahead, David.
And at the very least, like, oh, yeah, I don't know a lot about it, but my thoughts are with them, something. But like, to say no comment, that's like the biggest blow off you could give them.
Yeah. Well, and at this point, it's Sunday. You know plenty about it, right? I mean, you've called in FEMA, allegedly. You've, issued disaster declarations, presumably. But you can't make a comment to a reporter about it? Okay. Anyway, let's not get off on that. But nevertheless, that's how this all started on Sunday. But he did manage, though, over the weekend to announce an additional $24 billion for Ukraine while on vacation. So leave the guy alone. He's sunning himself, but he still manages to get $24 billion out the door for Zelensky. But Maui, no comment. No comment on the over 100 Americans who have now died. And by the way, they're still having families submit DNA to the city because they don't know where a number of people are. So this number is presumably going to go up. We need your family's DNA because we can't identify people. We don't know where they are. And when we find bodies, we're going to have to try to, identify them in some way. No comment on the mysterious nature of these wildfires popping up in prime real estate areas just a short time before hurricane force winds arrive. No comment on that. No comment on why there are no tsunami sirens or evacuation alerts to get people out safely. The siren system works incredibly well across Maui. I've covered it for years, where we would go live, back in my days on Fox News, we would go live to the island when there were any sorts of big storm warnings occurring on the island and information that needed to be gotten out to the people. Even in the dark of night, those sirens would go off. Why were the sirens not used in this situation at all? No warnings, no alerts of any kind. Odd that it wasn't used in this particular neighborhood. Listen to NBC News ask the governor about this very story.
Earlier, I spoke with Hawaii's Governor Josh Green and began by asking him to respond to those complaints from residents who say there was no warning.
Yeah, the tragic nature of this fire, which was made worse by 80-mile-per-hour gusty winds from the remnant of Hurricane Dora, took out telecommunications, and they were fighting 3 other fires. That's what I've heard so far.
My understanding is a pretty robust siren system there, but it didn't work. Was there a human failure or equipment failure or a little of both?
It's too early for me to tell. Much of the equipment was destroyed with fire, and it's a very remote place. Of course, we would never diminish any kind of responsibility. We will leave it to HIEMA, which is our emergency management team, to help explain things going forward. right now, we're doing all that we can to support the families who have lost loved ones and to make sure everyone has health care and soon housing because of the devastation. It is much like an atomic bomb hit Lahaina, which is a part of Maui, leaving utter devastation.
Very little, if anything, though, is coming from the federal government right now. This is not us saying this. This is the Washington Post reporting this. Very little, if anything, is coming from the federal government. FEMA, again, the Washington Post saying this. Here's the headline. The most emergency aid and resources are coming from local island residents, native islanders, providing resources and all sorts of information to be able to help this. Here's very little, if anything, coming from the federal government. Here's a quote from from the Washington Post. There's no government agency helping us, quoting a native islander. That is it. No government agency helping us. Okay.
Kind of a repeat of Puerto Rico.
Right. Yeah, and by the way, this isn't, again, this is the Washington Post saying this.
And NBC News.
And NBC News. And by the way, we'll get to ABC News here in a second. So these are not like far right-wing publications or anything like that. These are establishment mouthpieces of the Biden administration for all intents and purposes saying this.
It's interesting that he said the equipment was destroyed, the tsunami alert equipment, because, okay, we don't have a log of that somewhere. You never wrote down when was the last time this was tested. Right. You know, you have to have the actual speaker to know when you did it last. You would think that the way these things work in an organized society is like, yes, that happens every Sunday at noon or what have you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, and we covered something a while back where, remember when there was like some kind of a alert went off and people got all these messages on their phone over there? There was like a terrorist attack or something like that. It was like a mistake. But like that means they're connected to their phones as well.
Yeah, a text message alert system. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It was a missile strike, right, Philip?
Yeah. So we don't know how.
And to me, though, it seems that like a disaster warning system, if it's so centrally located that a single location taking damage can take it out, that is not a well thought out emergency system. It's got to be spread out all over you know what I mean? Like a single booth somewhere.
Yeah, right. But we're talking about it in the past tense. Like the equipment was destroyed. Right. But it's meant to warn people. Right. It's meant ahead of time to get the message out about evacuate your houses, evacuate because of high winds, evacuate because of storms, not afterwards.
Well, he's admitting it didn't work and we can't do any forensics on it because it's destroyed. Like I said, I know
it's like someone cut the phone lines.
I mean, don't you have one of those logs like at a 7-Eleven bathroom? Like when was this tested last? Come on.
If you've been in a 7-Eleven bathroom anytime recently, the last time it was checked was 2001. Many people are now rightly questioning the timing and location of these fires, though totally destroying the city of Lahaina, a city that, as you saw from the governors and the footage there that they just showed, totally destroyed. Now, this city is totally destroyed. And a city that has fought against development by wealthy outsiders for decades. And you don't need me to tell you this. It's easy to look up. It's easy to see. All you need to do is, in fact, you can speak to the families who've talked about not wanting to give up their homes and not wanting to be sold out and bought out by, resort developers. And so they've continued to keep their small businesses, their small family inns, their small restaurants, the cafes, the coffee shops. They've kept that. And the overwhelming number of people who live here have lived here for decades in this town. Some going back to the early 1900s in this town. And many people are questioning the timing of all of this. If you look at the demographics of this area, when you study Lahaina's demographics, you'll see a mostly Asian population with a large native islander population, many families refusing to sell their land to billionaire developers over the years. In fact, you can see the latest development projects that are already approved for Maui on Hawaii's government portal. So I spent quite a bit of time today going through Hawaii's history and approval of these projects. Here in green are the projects already set for approval. Those are already approved. Here in yellow are pending projects. And here in red are the proposed projects that haven't been approved. But you notice right there in the center of your screen, that's Lahaina. Notice how all of those developments, see all of those houses, all of that area is just like off limits. Because guess what? People live there. Well, not anymore, because now it's all been destroyed. So this area had basically been off limits to development because, native islanders and longtime residents refused to sell their homes. So who knows? Perhaps there's nothing nefarious going on here at all. But now this entire city has been totally destroyed. Lahaina is now destroyed. And according to ABC News, this is not, again, a right-wing publication, ABC News says this: Lahaina residents worry that a rebuilt Maui town could slip into the hands of affluent outsiders. So in a matter of like days, it didn't take very long for ABC News to speak with locals about their big concern. This is something they've been fending off for years, and now it's a real concern because are people just going to like up and move? They're going to sell off their land. They'll end up paying it to the highest bidder. Will insurance even cover it to rebuild? They've kept buying. They kept them from buying their land for decades in this area. So Maui County estimates that more than 80% of the more than 2,700 structures in the town were damaged or destroyed. 4,500 residents are newly in need of shelter. And according to the census data that I looked at, about 13,000 people live in Lahaina. So, and most of them are homeowners. Over close to 60% of them own their own homes in Lahaina. But oddly, reporters are being kept from the town and asking questions. Ashley Probst is the editor of the Maui Times. Her parents lost their home. They've lived in this home since the year 1911. Her childhood home was destroyed this week. She's being kept from doing her job as a reporter and editor of the Maui Times, trying to get answers from city and government officials as to how this fire unfolded and what do we do now to help get people the response and answers they need. Here's what she had to say.
This narrative that the media is lying about the reality of the Lahaina fire is incredibly frustrating for me because I am the media. I am the editor of Maui Times, and I have tried relentlessly to get direct information from the County of Maui as well as the Maui Police Department. Both entities have been radio silent and have not responded to any of my calls or emails over the past few days. I also spoke to Maui police officers in person in Lahaina, and they all denied me my First Amendment right to freedom of the press by denying me access to Lahaina town as well as denying me information. They even sent me on a wild goose chase trying to find their media coordinator who had conveniently gone home for the day by the time I found where he was supposed to be. So it is not the media who is lying to you because I am obligated to only report what has been confirmed. Who's lying to you is the government entities who are trying to cover their asses and not take accountability for how grossly mismanaged this entire situation has been. Maybe if we make this go viral, I'll actually get a response from them.
Good girl.
So, yeah, where will this land go? How will it be? And by the way, her family lost their whole family business. So they had an inn that they ran, totally destroyed. So she's a reporter from that town, knows it very, very well. So where will this land go? How will it be transformed? It's anyone's guess. But if you listen to the World Economic Forum and the new governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, they want to turn Hawaii into a poster child for green energy. I mean, this is like the World Economic Forum's like wet dream. They love Hawaii. Hawaii has become a darling of the World Economic Forum. How Hawaii plans to be the first U.S. state to run entirely on clean energy. And of course, then they got their newly installed governor and the move away totally from fossil fuels all to a renewable electronic future. But also, not just electronics, artificial intelligence. So a big piece of Hawaii's plan, as Hawaii has publicly spoken about this, the governor has publicly spoken about this, is to basically run the entire island using artificial intelligence. So that artificial intelligence, I don't know, we don't know how deeply this goes, right? Elon Musk is warning us about the dangers of it. So when you have artificial intelligence basically monitoring and running everything on the island, keeping up with all of government services and its citizenry and everything that's happening there, do you guys trust AI to be your government? Did you elect AI to be your representatives? But I guess you are, well, because that's how it's going to be run.
The only way people can get on and off the island is fossil fuels. I mean, like, what are they going to do?
Right.
Right.
You're just trapped here.
Right. And it's amazing, right? People can't travel in this area right now. They're being blocked off and cordoned off, but tourists can still fly there. Like, you can still use fossil fuels to hop on a plane and fly to Hawaii. That's no problem. And the idea that we're ever going to be able to use some sort of renewable battery technology for airline flights is laughable. Absolutely laughable. So it'll be interesting. Here, Governor Green explains to the United Nations, he's been speaking about this and about Hawaii's plans for monitoring everything that will happen on Hawaii using artificial intelligence, although he doesn't quite use those words, but that's exactly what the plan is if you read the details. Watch.
In the old days, decades, generations, and even centuries ago, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people lived in Hawaii and had a sustainable culture for food. And that was something that we still recognize. To that end, we have done some things, and we hope to be able to share this much more in time. One is the Aloha Plus Challenge, which is a data-driven approach, which we can share with our states and with anyone who feels that it would be helpful to track the SDGs, to make sure that we embed them in all of our policies.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to embed every data-driven approach. We'll have the STGs, the ESGs, and all of the environmental protection plans in place. And we'll be monitoring it using artificial intelligence so that every business is compliant and everything is being tracked. And we know how these 15-minute cities unroll. So again, there's a lot of speculation as to what this will now mean for Lahaina and these other areas that were burned, or what Hawaii's future will look like as a result of this.
And can I just say something? Mm-hmm. My grandfather lived off the land. He was born in the Big Island. He had no shoes. He lived in a hut. His dad was killed in a train accident as a laborer. And that is that's a life he wanted to escape. It was an incredibly difficult life. He joined the service so that he could serve during World War II in order to leave Hawaii because it was such a hard life. So you're romanticizing this life that my grandfather had to work his butt off in order to leave because there's a really high fatality rate, low life expectancy. You have to work for every single calorie that you've got. He was begging for food in the sugar plantations where my Spanish family was working. The idea that this guy's like, this was a great life, let's go back to that, is incredibly insulting to some people's histories, mine included.
Well, yeah. And it's think about it, it's if they're going to roll it backwards, you're basically going to roll it back to Japan before they allowed, you guys are going to not allow any trade. Oh, you guys want computers, you want TVs? Sorry that we can't manufacture those in Hawaii because we can't get the stuff. We're just going to have to use what we have here. So, we can make certain things, but it's just going to be like walled garden.
Yeah. I mean, I get that we want to romanticize this, but it was incredibly hard life. And there's certain things about being Hawaiian. They're like, oh, we were voyagers. We had connection to the spirit world or whatever, you want to say about being Hawaiian. But this is a life that people want to actually push themselves into prosperity and not have barefoot children that could die of diseases.
I guess what got them there, fossil fuels, right? Trade, being able to bring things off island there. It was, enabled this island to prosper, right? Fossil fuels. And you want to get away from that. You want to totally get away from that and move towards, an energy policy that is literally crushing Europe right before your eyes. Just look at what's happening right now in Europe. This is a sort of a harbinger of things to come in this country. So here, Governor Green.
I was just going to say there's always blowback with stuff like that because what they don't always ever take into consideration is if they're going to do all that stuff, they have to retrofit ships to deliver products and all this other stuff for these carbon neutral or whatever the heck they're going to do. And the cost for everything for those people will skyrocket, and you're going to just completely crush the poor. The people that are living comfortably there wouldn't be able to do so.
Right. That's who always gets hurt by it, right? So here, Governor Green explains how Hawaii's green energy interests should be, that they've been really leading on this, and people need to pay attention of where Hawaii plans to go. Watch.
We tried to lead on energy and climate. We were the first state to mandate 100% renewable energy for electricity. So it's, again, an opportunity as a small state with technically a small footprint, but we do punch above our weight a little bit because of our position in the Pacific.
So is this a larger WEF plan to turn Hawaii into a WEF planned state with 15-minute cities? Are government officials purposefully keeping the media from reporting the true story here? Let us know your thoughts on this. We don't have all of the answers, but we're certainly presenting what we do know about these planned developments, what these government officials are planning, and what the response has been from the federal government here and the lack of federal assistance and local Native Islanders who are having to step up and actually provide and take care of their local people. So that's what's happening. We'll see what happens to Lahaina, though. Will it be rebuilt the same way? Or will developers be able to swoop in and buy up that land for pennies on the dollar?
And who are the insurers here? Are they going to be, making good on their policies? I'm always interested because a lot of times people have like named storm coverage, and I don't know what's customary to get in Hawaii. But a lot of insurance plans are like, you're only covered if it's a named storm. Well, does it count that it's winds from a storm? And what was the impetus of the fire? These are really important questions that will have real world implications in people's lives.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time